not even necessarily working on it every day, but just putting some thought, into it every day. And that way you kind of alleviate, that stress of, doing things at the last minute. And that can be a very taxing process. And life is already stressful enough, and the life of college students is probably even more stressful. So don't incur added stress by waiting until the final moment, to do your work. All right. Or, waiting to the final moment to let it be known that you're having an issue with the assignment. All right. And to be totally honest, I tend to listen to reason most of the time, but to be totally honest, the longer you wait, um, the what am I trying to say? The longer you wait, the less prone your teachers will be to help you, because a lot of your teachers are going to say, "Well, you had a week to do this. Like, why are you now? Why are you just now making this an issue?" So in the future, again, just practice or get in the practice of, being proactive, right? As human beings, what we practice, whether it's good or bad, but what we practice the most is what we do best. So if our practice is procrastination, then that's what we're going to do best. All right. So that's it. Let me get off the soapbox now. All right. So again, my people, those assignments were due at 11:30 today. All right. Oh, and that brings me to another thing. In this class and beyond, and I think this is especially important now that we're remote. Always make sure you read the directions of an assignment carefully. All right. Just make sure you know what you're doing right before you. And I'm not saying know what you're doing as far as like the act of writing, but just know like what assignments am I accountable for? All right. And if you have questions about that, just ask away, of course, by email, or you can ask in the chat. But yeah, just make sure you're staying current with D2L, and make sure you know what you are accountable for. All right. I try to give my assignments in a few ways, like online. I give it to you orally. All right. And then you can always check D2L to make sure. So again, just make sure you're staying aware of everything. And I get that it's tough, with everything going on. All right. So now, rant over. All right. And today I wanted to talk about a few more things. And then I wanted to hit you with, a few more segments. Okay. The fun stuff. All right. So here's what we can do. All right. Let's log into our textbooks. All right. If you need that, I'm already logged in, but I'll log myself out just for fun. Let me share my screen real quick. All right. All right. Now I'm sharing. Okay. Now again, the website is just digital.wwnorton.com/little seagull3. All right. I'll type it in to see. Meant to clear my cache before I came, before I signed in for class. Well, my history is pretty innocent this week. All right, digital www.norton.com/little-seagull3. Just hit enter, and it should take you to your sign in screen. All right, I was already there, so it was probably just going to take me back. Okay, so that'll take you here, and then you can just go sign in. All right, or you can still follow along with me. We're going to use the ebook right now, so you can just click on that. All right. And now we're just going to skip over these first couple chapters. All right. And we're going to look at writing processes. Let me get in the right class first. All right. Writing processes. Okay. And there was a reason we did our first actual writing assignment. Well, we did our first writing assignment before we had this discussion, and part of it really was getting you to start coming to terms with your own writing process. There are stages of the writing process that most, if not all, writers will go through, especially student writers. But I think maybe our approach to these stages of the writing process is different, which is fine. And I think that's the great thing about the practice of writing. And as we learn more, we can certainly, develop a style of our own. And I think that should be, even though it's not one of our course outcomes on our syllabus, one of our outcomes should be, developing a style that's unique. Like if I read your paper, hopefully I get the sense that this paper, or at least by the end of the semester, hopefully I get the sense that this paper could not have come from anyone but you, right? Because I know your voice by then, and hopefully if you haven't already done so, you're starting to, or you will have started to develop a style that's uniquely yours. All right. But I will say this, if your style is still developing, or you've had writing classes in the past and they didn't really work out for you, some people tend to be intimidated by writing, but it's a skill just like any other skill. And I say that meaning like it's a skill, and it just gets better the more we practice it. All right. But I think writing is also unique in this way because you get better at writing the more you write, but also reading will make you a much better writer. All right. Actually, reading is, I would go out on a limb and say reading is your best writing teacher, or one of your best writing teachers. You just learn models, you learn structures, you see how words fit together. And then just more on a practical level, you just learn things like there, and there. All right. Because you always see it. All right. So reading is certainly your best teacher, but we'll just look at some of these points here, you know, writing process. And really, if we look at it as a sequence, it's generating ideas, it's drafting, it's getting feedback, it's revising, it's editing, and then we call it publication, but really it's just, when you submit an assignment, because you got to turn stuff in at some point. All right. But a piece of writing is never really done. It's just, you have a deadline. That's when it's done. All right. Now, first thing you do in the writing process, and this could even apply if we look retroactively at the assignment we just did. All right. One of our best tools when we have to write something, one of our best tools is right here, our own brain. Okay. So we read the article last week, right? And it was about, how lies become truth. Now, after you're done with the summary aspect of that, which is just, author's key ideas, but now in the response section of this, now we have to think about our own ideas, right? What do I think about these ideas? Have I heard them before? Okay. What points can I make in response, to what I just read? All of this practice is being done, before you actually start writing. So really, it's asking those questions, but our textbook kind of gives us some more formal ways of brainstorming. And just I use the notes the notes function on my phone just to like jot things down. So and our technologies are great, for brainstorming or just capturing our ideas before we forget. I'm getting kind of older, and I forget stuff all the time. Getting older, and I just made questionable choices in my past. Coming back to haunt me. All right. So here's some things that you can do to get yourself organized before you start. All right. And one of the rules I give students about brainstorming is kind of like when you go camping and you're gathering your firewood. It's said that when you're camping and you're getting your firewood, when you think you have enough, go get a few more bundles of firewood. And it's the same thing when we're brainstorming. Always try to come up with more ideas than you'll actually use. All right. Also, when you're brainstorming, you're not really evaluating the ideas in that moment. You're just coming up with ideas. All right. Just coming up with ideas. Some you may use, some you may not. All right. So once you come up with these ideas, then go back through them and see, okay, which one of these ideas or which few of these ideas is actually worth pursuing. All right. And that's a good way to begin. But, it takes time, right? And, in the writing process, time is going to be one of your greatest assets. All right. Spending time, doing your work. All right. So here, it's got brainstorming, jotting down everything that comes to mind. Free writing, this is one I particularly like, where it's really just you come up with an idea or you have a point and you just write on that point for you give yourself an allotted amount of time, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, whatever. But it's free writing is usually done in short bursts. All right? Our book says 5 to 10 minutes, but I try to keep it even shorter than that. All right. But during that time, your goal is not to stop writing. All right. Not evaluating your ideas at that time. Not, saying, oh, this didn't sound right. This isn't a good idea. You're just going. Okay. And then, just like we said, we're going to go back and evaluate these ideas. All right. So, part of this process, generating ideas, and even the drafting process, and it's something that I communicated to a few people by email who were just having a hard time with the assignment that we had to do. And just after discussion, I realized that the issues they were having were more not with the assignment itself, but they were more about trusting themselves, meaning like trusting what they're going to say, trusting the fact that they're not wrong. When writing, may be right, you may be wrong. Right? It's just something we have to accept. But we shouldn't let am I doing this right? Don't let that interfere with your process. Of course, you can ask questions about it, but at the end of the day, you're gonna have to trust yourself, and that's why students who have taken me in the past know that I'm open to answering most questions. But one question I don't answer from students is, how does this sound so far? Like, you show me a paragraph of an essay, how does this sound so far? And my response to that question is always, keep going. Okay, keep going and let me see it when it's done. Meaning, come up with this draft without my input. All right. And then you can always go back and revise, but it's very important that in this early stage of the writing process, you develop that trust with yourself. Okay. Because you can always go back, right? All of us, right? We have keyboards. Keyboards have delete, have backspace, and everything, but it's just important to get your ideas out in the first place. Okay. So don't worry about what I'm going to say as the teacher, if I'm going to how I'm going to evaluate, or if what you're saying is sounding right. Let's get a draft out, and then odds are first draft isn't going to sound right. That's just the way things are. All right. So here are some pre-writing strategies. Okay. And like I was saying, brainstorming, free writing. Yeah, not many people in the past have used looping in my classes. Clustering, right? Where you've probably heard this a different way. Some people call it the web, right? If you want to get fancy, the eye of Socrates. But it's just where you circle main idea within that circle, and then you have ideas branching out from that. All right. Keeping a journal. Okay. Journals are great for the writing process. And I get most of what we write in our journals is for our eyes only, but that's not to say that it can't be a space where we can develop our ideas. One thing about journal writing, a lot of what we put in our journal can turn into essay topics, and that's kind of it shows us that really the best writing can come from just everyday experiences or things that we view as typically being mundane. All right, and then we aren't quite here yet, starting some research, but we will get there. But I will say this: it says preliminary research. And then to take it back to our article last week. All right, if there's some things you don't know, about the subject, look it up. Okay. I was gonna say Google's your friend, but it's not always your friend. All right, Google's one of those friends that I don't know, man. Sometimes they do right by you, sometimes they don't. Okay, and I say that because when you search something in Google, everything is going to come up from like things that are valid versus things that are way, I don't know, like conspiracy type things or things that really have no basis, in truth is what I'm trying to say. So just be careful with Google. All right. And when we talk about researching, I will show you more. Just about some of the great things about Google and, some of the dangers, that could arise from using Google as a research tool. All right. Now, develop your thesis statement, a tentative thesis statement. Tentative just means you can go back and change it. Thesis statements aren't set in stone until you submit the essay or you submit whatever you're writing on. But what is your thesis statement? Somebody can shout it out, whatever. What is our thesis statement, or what is your thesis statement? Yeah, you can enter it in the chat. You can shout it out, whatever. What's a thesis statement?
Do you want us just to
So
give us like, oh, my fault. Go ahead.
no,
No,
you
that's
can go
right.
ahead.
What's a better way of asking this question is what's the job of your thesis statement? Like what function does it form in an essay?
To
It
state
does
your
something very
argument.
important.
Isn't it pretty much like an attention grabber? Like it's just identifying the main point.
There we go. There we go. Okay. It's your main idea. All right. It's your main idea. Meaning this. If I or anyone else asks you a question, hey, what's your paper about? Your thesis statement is the answer. All right. And in face-to-face environments, I conference with my students one-on-one, and usually that's the first question I ask. And I will already have read the paper at that point, so I know what it's about. But I want to hear the student say it, meaning like, "What's your paper about?" And if the student is saying like, "Well, basically it's about," that lets me know thesis statement needs work. All right. If your reader reads your thesis statement, should know exactly what your paper is about. Okay, meaning what's the idea that you want me, the reader, to accept? All right, and when we're writing an essay, um, it's a lot of times in your best interest to come up with your thesis statement very early. All right, that's going to guide the rest of your paper, right? So when you have an assignment, once you kick around some ideas, you brainstorm, start thinking about, okay, now what do I want my reader to accept? Okay, and again, just like you did in the brainstorming process, jot some ideas down. Don't worry about how they sound at that point. Okay, in early stages of things I have to write, I try to make my main idea as plain as possible. I know I can go back and fix it and say it a different way, make it quote unquote fancy. But for the first part of it, I just want to know what's the main idea? What do I want to express to the audience? Okay. So try to come up with that first and then let that guide the rest of your process. All right. And in the writing process, it says you come up with a tentative thesis statement because it could be subject to change as you do more research. And again, when we're using the digital version of this book, we can just click on these highlighted things. All right, main point. Okay, give readers idea of what the text will cover. Also gives you, the writer, certain parameters you have to stick to. Meaning you can't drop anything in your paper that you didn't prepare your reader for with your thesis statement. All right. So yeah, make sure you're when we do papers that require thesis statements, make sure they clearly communicate your main idea. Okay, the main idea. We will revisit thesis statements. Our first essay, well, I'll talk more about the first essay when I actually assign it. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Now, you did your brainstorming. You got your tentative thesis. Okay. Now you're drafting. This is when you're putting in the real work of your paper. Okay. Important things to keep in mind when you're doing the draft. It's not the final draft. All right. And most importantly, don't fall into the trap of trying to make your first draft into your final draft. Meaning, don't think your first draft has to be perfect. Should you proofread it and try to clean up, as many typos as you can? Of course. All right. But your first draft, it's a draft. All right. It's a draft. So it's not the finished product. It's just, again, in some ways, in a draft, you're still kind of brainstorming, or you're still, getting ideas together. But now you're starting to shape these ideas, starting to put them together in an organized way. And by organized, I mean like intro, body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Okay. Even though, like I keep saying, it may not be looking, exactly how you want it to look at that given time, but it's just important for you to go through that process, right, of drafting and getting your ideas together. Okay. Am I, supporting, or better yet, what points can I make to support my thesis statement? Okay. Um, what evidence, do I need to bring in to support my thesis statement? How can I develop, my body paragraphs? These are what we're thinking about, as we're drafting. All right. And our book gives us some great pointers to writing a draft. And these are, things that, I try to incorporate. And, things I encourage students to incorporate, especially if you're still figuring out your process. All right. Some people, they're all their brainstorming occurs in their head, and they're able to, when they're able to start, or when they're ready to start drafting, they're mentally prepared to put together an essay. Myself, and I think many other students have to jot things down. And again, like I said, sometimes I forget things, or I may come up with an idea and then it's like 5 minutes later and it's gone. So whatever your process is, all right, stick to it if you're getting results. But if not, try it by the book. But these are some great strategies as far as drafting is concerned. One, write quickly in spurts. It's difficult to sit at your computer for 2, 3, 4 hours and then do an essay. All right, all in one sitting. All right, but if you do it a little bit at a time, things may come together. And sometimes you just need to give yourself a break. Separate yourself from what you're writing. Okay, go do something else that doesn't have anything to do with writing. All right, and then go back, to your writing once you've once you've given your brain, just a chance to rest up. One good strategy for this, and really just studying in general, is called the Pomodoro method. And the Pomodoro method is like, if you want to old school it, you can do it with the kitchen timer, but you can set the timer on your phone too. But you just set a timer for 20 minutes and you just work for that 20 minutes. Okay. You're not looking at your phone, like checking messages. You're not distracted by anything else. You just have a solid 20 minutes of work, of focused work. And you'd be surprised at how much you can get done in 20 minutes with a focused 20 minutes. Okay. Once your 20 minutes is up, give yourself a break and then, go back in for another 20 minutes when you're ready. All right. So yeah, write quickly, write spurts, expect surprises, meaning, you may start off going one way and then end up going another way. And this sometimes happens when we write our argument essays, where a student will have this belief that they're really passionate about, but once they start doing their research, they figure that, oh, you know what, I tend to the other side's views, right, really tend to resonate with me, where I thought I was thinking one way, but when I actually did my research, it turns out, my views are more aligned with this point of view. All right. So, don't, if that happens, it happens. And that's growth, right? That's growth. That's fine. Expect to write more than one draft. We're certainly going to be doing that in here as a mandate, when we start our essays. But in other classes where they may not be writing classes, but you will have to do some writing, try to do at least one rough draft that you can go back and revise. All right. I was just in a meeting, it was like an all-day meeting Friday, and that was one of the things that kind of came up, where writing in other disciplines, as opposed to just writing as in English classes. So try to carry these skills over, into your other classes. Writing process will work for an English paper, but it'll also work for a philosophy paper or a history paper or an econ paper, right? So don't think that you have to go through the drafting process only in English classes. All right. And then this last point. Okay. See if I can get fancy right quick and highlight this thing. Yeah, we'll just go pink. Oh, whoops. Highlighted the wrong thing. Okay. Yeah. All right. Don't worry about correctness. You can check words, dates, and spelling at a later stage. That is so true. Now, if you're using Grammarly or something like that, it's going to point out, the things that you need to go back and fix. But again, right now in a rough draft, you're not focused on these things. Okay, words, date, spelling. All right. Not worried about that in a rough draft. Okay, you can always go back. You can always go back. Says for now, just write. Okay, just write. And I think that's, again, what informs my response when I tell students, when they ask me, how does this sound so far? That is my response. Keep going. Or just like our book says, just write. Just keep going. I look at it, when you finish a draft. All right. Speaking of feedback, now, all right. When we start doing our essays that aren't summary response essays, you're gonna do a draft. You'll get it to me. Okay. I give you feedback on the document. All right. And depending on what we're writing, sometimes I am looking for just the whole structure, mechanics, and all that stuff. But a lot of times I'm looking for your content, meaning like I look at your thesis statement and then I'll say, okay, now did the student support their thesis statement? Okay. To me, it doesn't matter what the thesis statement is, your convictions or your beliefs, that's your own business. I just want to know if it's supported. All right. Is it supported? Okay. And that's what your reader is going to be asking you as they read your essay, right? Where's the evidence? Where are the receipts? Where are the reasons? Why should I accept this claim as opposed to these other claims, that I've heard or read? Okay. So think about these things, right? And you can ask yourself, these questions. And a lot of times before you submit a final draft, I will give you a self-assessment handout to fill out, and it's really just to get you to evaluate your own paper. All right, evaluate yourself. Spend time with your paper. Okay, spend time with your paper, man. Hang out with it. No, don't do that. That's weird. All right, so take yourself, through these questions as they apply to what we're writing. Some of these, maybe for assignments at a later date. All right, but we can certainly, our opening, right? Do we have an attention grabber? Your title is really your first attention grabber, but traditionally it's taught that you're like the first line of your essay is your attention grabber. Okay. What's the thesis? Is it stated directly? Sometimes you can have an implied thesis statement. That's fine. All right. But for us, we're stating our thesis statements. We don't with the exception of maybe our first essay, which is a narrative, you can have an implied thesis statement. But other than that, we want our thesis statement to be clearly stated. All right. And then you can take yourself, through the rest of these questions. Okay. Couple more points. All right. Now, we finished the draft. We got our feedback. All right. Now, we have to go through the revision process. And let me just say this right now. Revision is more than fixing. Meaning, like, don't just go through your paper and look at everything that has a comment and just fix those things. All right. Really go through your paper. Okay, because that's what we focus on when we revise big ideas. Is my paper organized? Did I follow through with my thesis statement? Do I have enough evidence to support these claims that I'm making? Did I provide valid reasoning, sound logic, for my reader? Right? Am I developing my paragraphs with good material, or am I repeating the same ideas in a different way throughout my paper? Why? Because I got to get this thing to 5 pages, right? Sometimes we do that, I'm guilty of that too when I was a student, just kind of droning on, trying to reach a page total. All right. All right. I'll tell you some tricks after the semester. All right. But now, look at the big ideas. Also, when you're revising a paper, sometimes you're switching paragraphs around, right? This paragraph I have towards the end of my paper, maybe it'll sound better at the beginning of my paper. Maybe my paper will flow a little bit better if I reorganized the paragraphs. Maybe I can take this paragraph out and make this one longer. Okay, these are the ideas you're thinking of in the revision process. It's the same, we're also thinking, I made this point in this paragraph, but I could provide a little more evidence. I could develop this idea a bit further. I can incorporate more detail here. It's the same thing. I can remove some detail here. All right. So these are the things that we're looking at when we're revising a paper. Big ideas, structural ideas, right? Am I supporting my thesis statement? Is my thesis statement sound, right? Am I saying what I want to say? Is my evidence used properly? All right. So we're not even worried about like the spell check type issues just yet when we're revising. Okay. Just remember, revision focuses on big ideas, structure, organization, and things of that nature. Okay. Revision, a way to remember it, revision, think big. All right. And revision, like re-envision, right? When we put the prefix re onto something, It just means to do it again. And that's just, it's, so when we revise our paper, we're literally seeing our paper again. All right. And hopefully we're seeing it with fresh eyes. All right. Because we've had a moment to be away from our paper. All right, or whatever we're working on, we come back, we're fresh. Sometimes when we stare at a screen all day, or we're putting hours and hours and hours into a writing project, it all starts to run together. Or when we read it back to ourselves, sometimes we read back what we meant to say instead of what we actually said. So just keep that in mind as you're revising. Think big. Now, okay, you have your draft together, you made your revisions, your ideas are where they're supposed to be, is organized in a way that's satisfactory to you. Okay, now editing and proofreading. Okay, it's the final stage of the writing process, but it's also a stage that we have to be mindful not to overlook. Okay, here's how papers go south. Typo in the first line. Typo in the first line. All right. Sometimes the name, is misspelled. And I get it, everybody knows how to spell their name, but misspellings, sometimes sometimes we're moving too fast. All right. So part of an unspoken part of the writing process is, just slow it down. Slow it down. Okay. Taking your time, but moving with purpose. All right. Now, so yeah, typos first line or really early in the paper, those make your paper go south, because now your reader's thinking, like, now your reader's not focused on your ideas. They're focused on you, because you made a mistake. It's a mistake. I after reading a few of your papers will know it's a mistake just after getting to know you. But your reader, who's picking up that paper for the first time and they see your name on it, they don't know it's a mistake. They just know that you don't know how to spell this word. And an example of this, in class, there's more often than not opportunities for editing and revision. But, if you're going to a 4-year school when you leave here, you may have to write a transfer essay. Or if you're going into the workforce, definitely going to have to do a cover letter, definitely going to have to do a resume. Typos on those, bad business. Okay. Typically, if it's a resume, employer's probably not going to look at the rest. All right. Same thing if you're writing a transfer essay, because you have to think, admissions offices, they get many many applications. All right, for a given semester. So if there's one with the typo in it, you just made their job a little bit easier, because now they can just delete that, or bypass it and go to the next one. All right. So really spend some time in that editing process. And again, just like with the previous stages in the writing process, if you can take a step away from your paper and then go back to it, fresher eyes will pick up a lot. Also, if you can have someone else looking at your paper, someone who you trust, of course. Again, in face-to-face settings, we peer review one another's papers. But try to have someone else look at your paper. All right. And if there's no one, there's a few things you can do to catch errors in the paper. One, and I'll show you this in a minute when I bring up Microsoft Word. One thing you can do in Word is, when you're reading your paper, enlarge the font. I mean, it's going to make your paper huge, but you catch more things like that. Also, you can mess around with the zoom key, whatever processor you're using. Just little tricks like that. If you have a printer, you can always edit on a hard copy, which is, it's cool if you have a printer. You have ink, unlike me. But there's Grammarly. There's Word, which can read your paper back to you exactly the way you've drafted it. So there are many strategies for editing. I just encourage you all not to bypass this process, because you can have the best ideas in the world. Okay, you can have the most well-supported argument in the world. But if your reader is constantly distracted by these errors that you could have fixed, if you had taken the time to edit your paper, it's not going to matter how good your ideas are if they can't make it through the paper because there are so many errors. All right, so that's our job. Edit your paper once you have a copy that you're satisfied with. Okay, get in there and do some editing. Okay, check it at the paragraph level. All of my paragraphs unified around one idea. Okay, are they fully developed? Okay, development means that you're just asking yourself the question, what does my reader need to know? All right, go through it on a sentence level. Okay, do I have fragments? Okay, do I have run-ons? Do I have awkwardly constructed sentences? Sentences when you read them back to yourself, you know what? I can say that a little bit differently. I can make that point a little more smoother, or I can be a little more clear here. All right, that's one of the good things about Grammarly. It will help you with it helps you with clarity. Okay, and if you don't know what Grammarly is, I'll show you in a minute. All right, and here we go. This is the last couple things. Okay, this one editing language. All right, I love when students expand their vocabulary. Okay, you should if you don't have it, okay, you should get some kind of dictionary app on your phone. All right, it's just really useful when you need to look up words, in a bind. All right, and then not everybody has a dictionary in their house. I'm sure I got one around here somewhere. It might be like an English Spanish dictionary or something, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Man. All right, but this one, are you sure of the meaning of every word? Okay, are you using the right word to communicate your message? Right. I once read a paper where a student was talking about this horrific accident, like a motorcycle accident, and this student said that the what was it, the rider or the driver? I guess the rider of the motorcycle got decaffeinated, right? And I'm thinking to myself, it's and then I'm like, oh, decapitated, meaning like his head, got removed in this accident. But that's the thing. Like, are we using the right words to convey our message? So I said all that to say, I definitely want you as students, as thinkers, as human beings, to always try to improve your vocabulary. But don't use a word until you're like comfortable with it. Okay. Sometimes we especially in Microsoft Word, we'll hit synonym and then it brings up all these synonyms and we just kind of choose one. Context. All right. Sometimes the context can change the meaning of a word. So use words that you're always try to learn new words, but don't again use words that you're comfortable with. Okay. And then kind of pressing for time here a little bit. So I just want to make sure I go over these assignments before we punch out. All right. So now, writing process, brainstorming, tentative thesis, drafting, revising, getting feedback, editing, proofreading. Okay. Seems like a lot, but some of these processes or some of these stages we'll spend more time on, and some we won't. All right. And then just to I'll actually put a link to Grammarly on our D2L page. Grammarly is very useful. Okay, I think I'm getting some lag in my computer. Come on, Grammarly. All right, I'll give it another second. If it doesn't work, then I'll just post a link on our D2L page. Okay. While we're waiting for that, all right, here's another function we can use for revision. Right now, I'm just in Word, obviously, right? And you can just go to review. And then you can just click read aloud. All right, what's up? I think I'm having some technical difficulties. All right, computer is not cooperating. You might have to Control Alt Delete. There we go. The Control Alt Delete, which was not ideal in this situation. Okay, but here's Grammarly. All right, and you can make a free account. All right, I want to log in, but let's see if my computer's going to allow me to do these things. Oh, now my task manager wants to come up. Okay, show must go on. All right, thank you. I'm already signed in, so I don't have to remember my password. All right. You can use what email address you want for Grammarly. It's not affiliated with OCC. I just use my OCC account. To be honest, you know, I always use my OCC account. Okay. Oh, now it's reading it. Okay. I use my OCC account for everything. Well, not for everything, but if there's a chance I can get something free.
Recently announced bans on Chinese-owned social media platforms TikTok and WeChat could have unintended consequences.
Thanks. Day late from the dollar short.
The apps from doing business in the U.S. or with U.S.
Read aloud function on Microsoft Word. All right. So it just reads. It reads over your paper. You can control the speed, and you can swap the voices out. You know, if you're feeling fancy. All right. Grammarly still logging in, so I'll come back to that if there's time. All right. And there's a few minutes, or I want to have you out of here in a few minutes, so let me just go over these assignments real quick. If I could, my computer is really misbehaving. Am I asking it to do too much? Poor little processor. Okay, now, all right, there's a few assignments that we have to address for next week. All right. This meeting, like I said, I will get it posted, and you can view it, you know, at your leisure. But here's one assignment. Okay, we're back in inquisitive. All right, and this one, just this assignment on sentence fragments. Once you log into your inquisitive account, you'll be able to see this assignment in the inquisitive area. It's really just, it's the same as our other two assignments, or the format of it is the same, but this one is about friend or not our friend, the sentence fragment. Okay, and get that knocked out. Okay, got a week. Okay, so there's one assignment. I will recap all of this in an update on D2L, so don't come on, D2L. Oh, here we go. Okay, now the content function. section. Going in the writing process module. All right. There's two things in here that I want you to look at. Well, two assignments in the writing process module. One's a discussion question. Oh, here we go. Okay. This is just stuff, just to reinforce, what we've been talking about. There's a couple of videos that I posted at the bottom as well. All right, or it's supposed to be posted at the bottom. I'll go ahead and post them again. Oh, here they are right here. I'm tripping. Now I'm tripping. All right. But one, again, is a discussion forum question. And this one is 4 short questions. How do you think academic writing differs from the writing we do every day? And everyday writing could be social media posts, texts that we send people, could be journal entries, if you keep a journal. And then in your own words, what's a thesis statement? Okay. What is it, man? What is it? All right. And then what are at least two brainstorming strategies that you have used or plan to use? And then finally, what's the difference between revision and editing? And just like your previous entries, you can bullet point it or you can paragraph it. That is up to you. All right. Just make sure you respond, thoroughly. Don't just for as college students, never do an assignment just to do it or just because you have to do it. All right. Always, put some thought into your work. Okay. So that's our other assignment. And then, all right, let me just, hopefully this won't take forever. I'm going to close Grammarly. All right. It's our second summary response essay. Okay. The directions are the same as the last one, like exactly the same. Only difference is our article is different. All right. And the article is posted. All right. You all can probably see it, but I'm in teacher view, so mine is set up to edit. All right. So inquisitive discussion question, summary response essay number 2. Okay. These are all of our assignments that are due for next week. And I will, again, just reiterate all of this in a recap on D2L. It takes maybe about 30 to 45 minutes for me to get the class converted and uploaded. So once that happens, I will just post our update on D2L. All right. Final questions for me before we get out of here. Okay. Is that somebody's intro music? I'm about to ask a question. Okay. No questions?
I'm just looking at
Okay.
so for this upcoming week, the only thing due is the discussion and the essay 2.
Discussion, summary response essay, and then the inquisitive exercise.
Oh, the inquisitive exercise.
Yep. And it's already been assigned, so once you sign into inquisitive, it'll just be right there. But again, I'm about to once this class is converted, I will just put a recap on D2L.
Perfect.
All right. Other questions? I'm about to end the recording. When is my computer? Yeah, I was in I tried to do a control alt delete, but I think I'm asking too much of this little computer. And the assignment from last week, essay and discussion question. All right. That was from last week, but for this week, it's assignment, discussion question, and inquisitive. All right. So if there are no further questions,